Now, let's talk about this notice of non-compliance on this rule. There it is. This is the form that was drafted. It didn't exist until after this Rule 690.50 was created. You see it up there at the top. It's kind of blurry. But it says, pursuant to the Department of Public Health Act 2305, remember that? We were talking about it. The Communicable Disease Code, sir, that's what you were talking about. On August 7th, to restrict COVID, see those 2 bullet points? That's the mask rule, and that's the more than occupancy rule, okay? And this form has been given to business owners in Region 7 and Region 4. And check a box. Which one didn't you comply with, business owner? Wearing of coverings? More than 50 people. What box is not on here? No indoor dining, because this rule doesn't have anything to do with indoor dining. And then it has a description of non-compliance. And then it says here that we can disperse you, and then eventually a Class A misdemeanor. And I know I haven't gotten to that yet because it's really, I'll get to that at the end, and you guys, when you hear it, you're going to think, why was I so scared? But this is the form that most will use. They'll walk into your facility on the mask or the occupancy and say, okay, I see you got your mask down. I had a business owner in Bloomington. They went in and said the mask was down to here by your employees, and people were up walking around, and they have masks on. You're violating this rule. Technically, it was true. He got 2 of those. We ended up getting it resolved for him, but I told him, look, if your local health department want to enforce this rule, the rule's there. So that's the notice of non-compliance, okay? Now, in Region 4 and in Region 7, I had health departments send letters to business owners who continue to have indoor dining, right? Saying you can't do that. And guess what they sent them? This. And on this page back here, see where it's got description of non-compliance? They wrote in there, indoor dining, and they gave it to them. And I'm like, okay, it ain't anything to do with indoor dining, but they don't, again, they're not picking, they don't know. They don't know, right? They're being told, oh, we got this resurgence mitigation, and, you know, indoor dining, if they don't do what they're told, they could potentially be charged under 8.1. So they pull this form out, they write indoor dining on it, they give it to people. People don't know that this rule has nothing to do with that. It's happened, and it may likely happen here. But if you get that form from anybody says you can't have indoor dining, go to that section right there, say, okay, show me where it reads that. I won't show you that, and then you can politely say, what else you got? All right? I'm doing that just to drive it home because I'm serious when I say that. I'm going to hit the wrong button when I know it. Maybe not. Okay. Third, remember? 1, 2, 3. Notice of non-compliance, 1 or 2. Depends where you're at. Second, order dispersal, which nobody's ever listened to. Third, Section 8.1 of the Department of Health Act. Class A misdemeanor. People start getting scared. I'm going to be charged with a crime. Right? Remember what I said, a couple of things about this rule. Business, not individual. This rule was crafted on purpose to politically make its way through the JCAR committee. It only applies to a business. Now, I've got 2 people down south, and I'm going to get to those, that got charged with this. 2 business owners. Took the state police 2 weeks to even get it to the courthouse. The law says 48 hours. They got them there finally. I've talked to the state's attorneys, one of them. I've emailed the other one. I know these areas really well. And before I graduated with my undergrad degree, I was in the casino business. I was a craps dealer for 8 years. Then I was a pit boss. Before that, I worked on a hog farm. I don't know. Anybody wants to take bets on whether or not these are ever result in conviction, come see me. It ain't going to happen. Trust me, it's not going to happen. And I'm going to talk about them a couple in a second because they're kind of funny. But anyway, 8.1 of the Department of Health Act. It's a real section. Okay. This is more out of the rule. And again, they gilded the lily on this enforcement against an individual. Enforcing entities shall not enforce this rule against an individual for non-compliance. No individual shall be held responsible for compliance with the rule on behalf of a business. It's in there all over the place. Again, I'm telling you because they couldn't get it passed any other way. They have to try to charge a business with something. You ever heard of a business? I had this conversation with an attorney today. He's one of the best criminal defense lawyers I've ever met. How do you charge a business with a misdemeanor? He says, I don't know. You ever put their articles of organization in jail? Right? I don't know. But you as an individual. Now let me ask you this. Let's say, this is another one we talked about. What if your business is a sole proprietorship? You can't charge the individual. Who are you going to charge? I don't know. I haven't seen that one yet. But what we're seeing, when I'm making this stuff and I'm pointing it out, it's for two things. One, to show you how serious it is, and it doesn't make any sense. But two, how they were flying by the seat of their pants trying to find an enforcement mechanism for the unenforceable. Now here's the actual rule itself. Let's say, under a hypothetical vacuum, leave indoor dining out of it. Let's say you didn't have the mask on your employees. They gave you 2 notices. You didn't listen. Gave you an order to disperse. You didn't listen. They come back and they hand you a Rule 8.1 citation for not following the rule as it's written. What happens? They don't just hand this to you and say, here you go up there tomorrow and pay a $2,500 fine. That's not how it works. They got to have a state's attorney that's willing to prosecute that. It's like, it's a misdemeanor. Again, it's a misdemeanor that you can't get in any criminal trouble for individually. It's precarious. State's attorney has to bring that, right? And again, I don't know. I'm not from around here. I know where I'm from. State's attorneys ain't prosecuting these people because guess what? They get elected, right? By the local people. I'm not kidding you. I've had, and I'm not going to say, but I've had state's attorneys tell me, Tom, I have told the state police, I've told the governor's office, I've told the health department, don't ever send me one of these tickets because it is not going to see the light of day. And you know what? A state's attorney has prosecutorial discretion. If he's not prosecuting it, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay? The state's attorney has to get that ticket, and then the state's attorney has to act upon it. He has to take you to court. He has to have a judge find you guilty, and then the judge sets the fine. The fine for a Class A misdemeanor, if there's any criminal defense lawyers here, I think a minimum is $75. Is that right, Austin? $75? $2,500 is the max, right? $75 fine to keep your business open is pretty cheap under your worst case scenario. We're not got the businesses yet, but they can't just hand you a $2,500 fine. They can't hand you a felony offense. It's not how it works. Now, here's a couple of things that are interesting. And this is where these tickets I'm going to get to. Whoever violates any rule of the Department of Health, it says regulation, but rule, right? 690.50 is a rule. So hypothetically, if you violate that rule, you may be liable. Who can bring that prosecution? The Department of Health shall institute prosecutions and proceedings for violation of the rule. Does it say the city sheriff? No. Does it say the state police? No. It says the Department of Health, right? One of these tickets, and there's 2 counties, doesn't matter. We've had that conversation. I said, state police wrote this citation, not the Department of Health. He says, yeah, I know, Tom, I don't know what to do about that. But go back to where it says any rule, right? You can be prosecuted under this section if you violate a rule. Tell me, does 690.50, which is a rule, say you can't have indoor dining? No. Do you know of any rule, not resurgence mitigation that got put on a piece of paper and printed and handed to you? That's not a rule. Rules go through the Joint Committee of Administrative Rulemaking, etc. They go through the process. A rule it's real. Do any of you, have you ever been given a rule that says you can't have indoor dining because positivity rate's over 8% on a 7-day rolling average? Anybody? Mr. Cabello, are you aware of that rule, sir? Does it exist?
I apologize.
Is there a rule that exists that you're aware of that says that the Illinois Department of Health has passed a rule that businesses can't have indoor dining if there's a 7-day rolling average over 8%? Are you aware, sir?
No.
Okay.
No rule question for you.
Yeah.
So, Saturday we gotta be shut down. What do we say to the department comes and says, you need to shut down? What do we say to them if they come in and give a citation for whatever it is?
Get to that. That's good.
We do have the local police departments are not going to enforce it. So if all the businesses are open and the state police and tell them they come and say shut down, what can they tell them? That's they need to know what the answer is. Can they stay open?
You stay open.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then you tell the state police.
And you can do that respectfully. You can do that respectfully. You can say, officer, because officers understand the law. What law am I breaking? What rule am I breaking? Please explain it to me. Right? The question was from this gentleman that if law enforcement, let's say it's the state police, and again, I've had this tons of times down south. What do we do if the state police walk in and say you got to shut down? You can say, based upon what, sir? What rule? What law? Etc. Do you have a court order? Right? No, I'm not trying to tell you to be civilly disobedient. I'm just saying, in my experience, when you do that politely and respectfully, they look at you like, oh, remember the one down south? They just left,
Okay,
right?
for now though. Well, what about in springtime when we have to renew and we weren't in compliance with then? So we violated an order then, and now when we're trying to get licensing in spring.
Licensing's next.
Yes.
That's the big one, right? What about my liquor license? What about my liquor license, right?
I want to know moving forward.
State Liquor Commission.
Pay attention, guys.
State Liquor Commission. They started back in March sending letters of not complying with executive orders to every client that I had open, which is hundreds of them, saying you could, C-O-U-L-D, not will, be subjected to discipline if you're open in violation of something, right? This is the law. Illinois Liquor Control Act, it's 200 pages long. The State Commission may not enforce any policy or rule that was not adopted in accordance with the Administrative Procedures Act, okay? What rule, and it's the same thing respectfully with your liquor agent, state we're talking about right now. Sir, what rule am I breaking that you are supposed to enforce, right? They can also adopt rules and regulations consistent with the provisions of the law. What rule has ever been passed by the Liquor Commission that says you have to follow resurgence mitigation? You could ask that question. It doesn't exist. Okay, they can suspend. Here it is, section 53-12. They could potentially suspend your license if you have violated any provision of this act, which is the Liquor Act, or any rule or regulation issued pursuant to that act. There isn't one, folks, that I found. There's not one. I've read it all. There is no rule. There is nothing in the act that says that you have to follow something that's not a rule, a health regulation, a real health regulation, like a rule, etc. This is just mitigation guidance. That's what the state act says. Hundreds of businesses, you know how many people that I've had have a proceeding started against them to have their license suspended because it takes a proceeding in front of an administrative law judge? 0. You know how many I've had get their licenses renewed? Numerous. Okay?
Can I say a quick thing? From a patron perspective, the very last of your previous PowerPoint slide, the very last words after the underlined portion that says, and in effect for 30 days prior to such violation, which means this public health department official for no dining rooms being open is taking effect as of this weekend, which means it would have to be in effect for 30 days prior to such violation. So
that's almost correct, sir.
So
Sir, hold on a second. Now, you're not right, and I don't want to confuse people. The 30-day violation has to do with a rule that's passed pursuant to the State Liquor Commission and the State Liquor Act. They're not talking about rules of other administrative agencies, okay? If they had passed a rule, what you say is true. But there is no rule, and there is nothing promulgated by the Illinois State Liquor Commission regarding these issues. So this is not even relevant to that, okay?
Okay. Thanks for.
Now let's talk about the local liquor commission, because that's a big one, right? That's a big one that you guys need to pay attention to. The local liquor commissioner may revoke or suspend your license if he determines that you have violated any provision of the Act, which is the Liquor Control Act, or any valid ordinance of the local jurisdiction, or any valid ordinance of the local jurisdiction, or any applicable rule or regulation by the local jurisdiction, okay? If a local liquor commissioner feels you've done that, you get a public hearing, you get 3 days written notice, and it's open to the public, okay? You have a right to be heard in front of the local liquor commission. He can suspend on an emergency basis, but not for more than 7 days. And during that period of time, you have to have a notice, or have a hearing in the 7 days, and he shall issue that notice within 5 days. So there's a process, okay? And if he were to suspend your license, local license, you can appeal to the State Liquor Commission. And when you appeal to the State Liquor Commission, you get to continue to operate your business. You don't get shut down immediately like that if you appeal his decision. You get to continue to operate, okay? And this is what it says right here. You can continue under 57-9 to operate. You can even ask for a new hearing, an additional hearing in front of the State Commission. Asking for a rehearing, it takes more time. And if you don't like the decision of the administrative process of the Liquor Commission, you can appeal to a court. So there's a whole due process. But keep in mind, the most important part is your local liquor license. Is there a local ordinance or local rule within your local liquor ordinance that you're violating? You have to pay attention to that. And I've got a couple of them here for you. Here's the city of Rockford. Okay, compliance with health and food laws. Subsection B, potentially a violation of your liquor license if you have violated any provision of any health law of the state or the city, right? So potentially, I'm not saying your local liquor commissioner would, I don't know him, he may not care. If you violated a health law of the state or the city, that could be. Now there is a health law of the state, 690.50, remember it? Does it say anything about indoor dining? No. So if someone says, hey, local liquor commissioner says you have indoor dining going on, and I can potentially suspend your license because you're violating the state health law, you go, which one? 690.50 doesn't cover that, and ask them that question respectfully. Okay? It goes on also to say in the city of Rockford, it talks about violations of this chapter of the ordinance, okay? What they can do if you're violating the chapter. Here's the city of Rockton. Your license could potentially be suspended for a violation of any state law pertaining to the sale of alcoholic liquor. It's not as fine-tuned, correct?
No.
City of Rockford was very specific. If you violate Rule 690.50, potentially that could be an issue. This city here just merely says if you violate a state law pertaining to the sale of alcohol. So local health regulations or state health regulations have nothing to do with the local liquor ordinance in the city of Rockton. City of Roscoe, I just pulled it up too. Violation of any provision of any ordinance for the violation of any state law and law pertaining to the sale of alcoholic liquor. Okay? Doesn't say anything about health regulations there either. So you have to know the jurisdiction you're in and what those local ordinances say. Okay? And the city of Roscoe gives the process that you can appeal, etc. This one doesn't take much to do here. Video gaming. There's another one, right? If you operate or permit the operation of video gaming within an establishment in violation of this act, okay? Do you violate the operation? You guys know you're going to be able to have video gaming, right?
Yeah, right.
You can't go and sit down and feed your family, but you can feed the poker machines.
Right, what percentage? 25%?
So, you still have the capacity. So anyway, violating the Gaming Act is almost impossible, okay? Because you can still have video gaming. Okay? You have to conduct the licensed video gaming operations in a manner that does not pose a threat to the public health, safety, morals, etc. What does that mean? Anybody means, but again, if you're operating indoor dining, you're not violating any rule that I'm aware of or Mr. Cabell is aware of, okay? That's the most important thing to take away from this. Two last things. These tickets that got written by the state police. 20 ILCS 2305 8.1. Remember we talked about it, for violating a rule of the Department of Health. This ticket's not going anywhere because there was no rule violated by the Department of Health for having indoor dining. I know that, the state's attorney knows that, everybody in that area knows that. You know why this ticket got written? What were they trying to promote? Fear, right? Here's another one. Monroe County. I'm going to have a little fun in Monroe County, but I can't tell you any more than that. This ticket's not going away anytime soon because I got a little discovery I want to do. They cite 690.40. You didn't hear me say 50, did you? No. You know what 690.40 was? That was the one in May that never got passed, so he didn't write the right rule on this one. Right? Folks, that's it. I'd be glad to talk to you about anything you want to talk about. I've got okay.
We got one more person who wants to say a couple words.
Oh, I just finished. Anyone ask me something?
Yeah, Sheriff Carolina wants to come up.
Sheriff? Okay. Sheriff, are you arresting me, sir?
Okay, knowledge is power. Is that great? Great presentation. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I said it before, and sometimes I make people mad at me, and sometimes I don't. But when the mask law first came out, I said it, I'm going to say it again. You want to wear it, you want to social distance, you want to wash your hands, great. It's personally up to you. We are not enforcing, as a sheriff's office, I could pretty much speak for any law enforcement agency in this county. I know Brendan from the state police, the director, fairly well, and I know Carl Hines, the director, or the captain here. Pretty much so, we're all on the same page. O'Shea's and I are on the same page. We are not going to go into your bars and stalk you or do anything like this. So no fear. Again, yes.
Loves Parks. We're not doing
Nice hair. That's why I asked the question for you guys. If you're open and the state police come in, can they shut you down? Where you at?
Right here,
He said no. So it's your choice. All right, and we're not enforcing it. He's not enforcing it.
Senator Dave Severson personally apologized for the governor that I didn't vote for. And the director of public health that I didn't approve of. So, but we are working on behalf of Representative Cabello and myself. We are certainly working to try to change these rules, but Madigan has blocked us from going back to session, so we can't be in Springfield to work on changing these rules. So we're here listening to ways that we can get around that, which is following the law and using common sense. I think the key thing is all the hearings we've had for the last month, we know that bars and restaurants are not the problem. You've gone out of your way to make it a safe experience for your patrons, and that should be rewarded, not punished. If John Cabello's home was as clean as your bars, that'd be a whole different story. The health department ought to go to his place and shut it down. Leave you guys alone. But seriously, I guess you went through so much. I'm so confused listening to all this. What people really need is a little cheat sheet that they can have. That if someone comes into their place and they say X, they can point to Y. And if they say Y, you can point to Z. Because no one's gonna remember all these numbers and articles and references. They need, I think, a cheat sheet that you can have, so when they come in and start intimidating you, you can just scroll down. So, is the cheat sheet available?
The cheat sheet's gonna be available shortly after this.
Okay, the cheat sheet will be available shortly, so we'll make sure they'll tell you where to get that, so you know where there's a reference. But we appreciate what you're doing, and again, sometimes it's civil disobedience to do the right thing.
We'll take questions in a second, hold on.
So, thank you for being here, thank you for being involved, thank you for being business owners, thank you for helping keep the economy going. We are very grateful for all of you.
Thanks, Dave. You know what, Greg and I, we tease each other who looks oldest, so I don't know, we'll take a little poll here. But again, I don't want everybody to fear. Freedom is not free. You have to fight for your freedom. Unfortunately, we're at this stage of the game. But if somebody ever tells you that the sheriff's office is going to come in and do whatever, give me a call, come down and see me, because that's not true. The only way that would happen is under, like this gentleman said, under a court order, and you know, we have to, but not just, we're not going in there and playing that game. Did you have a question?
I do. I just wanted to make clear what I'm hearing. You know, I got Dave's coming up here, and you guys are all coming up here in different departments and everything. And so if this does come down to it, to any business owner, restaurant owner, bar owner, and this is coming down, and you guys are standing here saying that we don't need to worry about that. You guys got everybody's backs and everybody's together, right?
Again, I like to speak for me and my department, and like I said, well, Greg was saying that he's the mayor of Loves Park, but I'm pretty on page with all the law enforcement agencies in this county. We're not doing that. We're not playing that, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right, guys, one last quick announcement that everybody outside should hear and everybody inside. We've created a little Facebook group tonight just so we can stay in contact with everybody, and about the cheat sheet and putting links inside of there. We just did this like 5 minutes ago. If you look up on Facebook, Region 1, Stay Open, join it. That's how we will communicate with everybody. We'll put the cheat sheet, whatever, together in there to help everybody, any kind of questions, answers. We'll get Tom to be a part of that, and if anything crazy did come down, we're planning on having Tom to represent us all. Whoever does want to stay open with us, I know I'm staying open. If anything happens down the road and we need to file a big lawsuit against the governor, that's what that group's going to be for, and we all put our money together in a pool, and we take them, go at them. So that's where we're at. We'll do a Q&A with Tom. Thanks again for coming out. Region 1 Stay Open Facebook group. Get on that, and that's where we'll communicate through there. Tom? Does anybody have questions that weren't? Yeah. What's that? 20 questions? All right. Really good questions. Yes.
What is the minimum requirement for 690.50 for all bar owners? Like, what is the minimum requirement?
For bars and restaurants, people inside the facility over the age of 2 and who can medically tolerate, employees included, have to wear a mask unless they're sitting, eating, and drinking. That is a requirement of that rule. The other requirement has to do with the occupancy. According to this rule, I believe is 50 people or 50%. Have to pull it back up at that occupancy capacity. But the main one that they've been looking at is the masks.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The mask with the HIPAA law, are they exempt from wearing a mask in medical? Yeah.
You know, I've had that question asked 1,000 times, and believe it or not, even with ADA and HIPAA, on the grand scheme of things, as precarious as everything is, I just tell people that if somebody's telling you they can't wear one, my business owners are not asking them for the HIPAA stuff, but you just have to use a little, as he said, common sense. If you think somebody really has a medical condition, it's one thing. But if you let somebody not wear one and the health department comes in and they don't have it on, you may have to address that, right? So there's no bright line rule in the law. You're just going to have to use your common sense. Yes, ma'am.
This is probably for Severson and Caballo. Are they going to try to write into the law, into the rule, or into the rule that there's no more indoor dining? Are they going to try to do that?
I don't see any chance of that happening anytime soon. Yes, ma'am.
How many of us are not in the pool? There you go.
I just want to say this. We are strength in numbers. So, everybody, you guys logged in, you guys signed in, you guys got an email that we're gonna be sending out to you. Remember, it's strength in numbers, so please, stay open if you desire to. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. But remember,
Ask how many are gonna stay open.
well, I can ask, how many wanna stay open right now?
Are
Raise your
going to,
hand.
not want to, going to.
All right, it's the same difference. Want to say whatever.
They